In the dead of night, with trembling hands and her son sleeping on a hospital chair, Sarah sends a message to a recipient who should never respond. Tears blur the cracked screen as she describes the crumpled card that Ethan carries as if it were magical. What happens next would defy any statistical probability, shake the foundations of a family on the verge of collapse, and make the world question: how far does an idol's responsibility go? What does it really mean to extend a hand to a stranger when no one is watching? The November rain fell relentlessly over Oakland when Sarah Williams, 31 years old, squeezed her son Ethan's hand as they walked aimlessly through the streets of Fruitvale. The 7-year-old boy coughed occasionally, a sound that tore at his mother's heart. "Mommy, where are we going?" asked Ethan, his voice almost swallowed by the noise of a passing train. "Just a little further, sweetheart." Sarah swallowed the lump in her throat. "We're looking for a special place for tonight." The backpack on her back contained everything that remained: some clothes, documents in a plastic envelope, toothbrushes, and Ethan's asthma medications. 3 hours earlier, they had been evicted from the small apartment they called home. The Alameda sheriff delivered the final notice: 3 months of overdue rent since the school where she worked as a teaching assistant suffered budget cuts. "Do you have somewhere to go?" asked the sheriff, looking at Ethan. "Yes, of course," Sarah lied, clinging to what little dignity remained. That night, the 2009 Toyota Corolla became their only refuge. "Let's play camping in the car," she said, forcing enthusiasm as she unlocked the door. "Isn't that fun?" Ethan looked at her with eyes that saw much more than a child should. "It's okay, Mommy. I know we don't have a home anymore." Something broke inside Sarah. The tears she had contained for weeks finally overflowed. "Don't cry," he said, wiping away her tears. "At least we're together, and I have my lucky charm." He showed a crumpled basketball card, Steph Curry, number 30. Mr. Curry was also small, and nobody believed in him, but he never gave up. The next morning, Ethan's cough worsened dramatically. Sarah drove to Highland Hospital, knowing she couldn't afford the bill, but without an alternative. In the waiting room, while Ethan received nebulization and the diagnosis of pneumonia, Sarah used the hospital's Wi-Fi to open Instagram. Without thinking twice, she navigated to Steph Curry's official page and typed a message. "My son is sick in the hospital, admiring your card like a talisman. We have no home, no regular food. I'm not asking for money. I just wanted you to know that even in the worst circumstances, you bring hope to a little boy from Oakland. And now, that hope is all we have left." She sent the message and closed the app, tears running down her face. It was a cry into the void. She knew. Celebrities like Curry received thousands of messages. He would never see it, never respond. Sarah Williams had hit rock bottom, and she still didn't know that sometimes, when you touch the bottom, the only possible direction is up. The lights of McDonald's on International Boulevard flickered as Sarah cleaned the counter at 3 in the morning. 2 weeks at the new job, earning minimum wage, barely covered the basic necessities. 15 minutes more and we're done, said Gloria, the Guatemalan manager who allowed Ethan to sleep in the back room during the overnight shifts. Sarah looked at her son curled up in his coat on an improvised mattress. Still recovering from pneumonia, he was taking generic antibiotics obtained through charity. 12 hours earlier, they had spent the afternoon at the public library, where Ethan participated in free educational activities. The car, parked near a community center, allowed Sarah to use the showers by claiming she was there to exercise. Each day was an elaborate choreography of survival. "Mommy, I had a dream, murmured Ethan. I dreamed that Mr. Curry read my letter. Sarah smiled sadly. What letter, my love? The one I wrote at the hospital. I put it under your phone while you were sleeping in the chair. 12 miles away, in an elegant house in the Oakland Hills, Steph Curry was beginning his morning ritual. At 5:30, long before his children woke up, the basketball star started his routine. Meditation, stretching, functional training. 30 minutes of social media today, reminded Brian, his communications manager, as they went through the day's agenda. Steph was scrolling through his feed when something made him stop. A direct message marked as possible humanitarian interest, a category created after his request to be alerted about situations where he could help directly. Brian, can we verify this? He asked, showing the message about Ethan. It seems local. It mentions a hospital. The manager hesitated. We receive dozens of these daily. Many are... No, this one is different, interrupted Steph. She mentioned a card, a sick boy from Oakland. That's too specific. And if it's legitimate, what do you intend to do? Steph reflected. First, let's find out if it's real. Then, I think I need to meet this boy. At the library, Sarah heard a librarian calling her. There's someone asking for you at reception. Fear was immediate. Child protection authorities? Someone who recognized her? Her ex-husband? Ethan, stay here in the children's section, she instructed, trying to hide her panic. In the main hall, a man in a gray hoodie stood with his back to her. Excuse me, Sarah said cautiously. The librarian said someone was looking for me? The man turned, lowering his hood slightly, and Sarah froze. The same eyes she had seen hundreds of times on posters and televised games now looked directly at her. Sarah Williams? Asked Steph Curry, his voice softer in person. I received your message. Can we talk? Shock left her speechless. Was it a hallucination? A prank? The silence was broken by a small cry. Ethan had followed his mother and now stood paralyzed, his eyes wide. You're Steph Curry, whispered Ethan. And then, with childlike simplicity, he added, You came. I asked the first star of the night, and you came. Steph knelt down to be at eye level with Ethan and responded with equal simplicity. Yes, Ethan, I came. In the small study room of the library, Sarah sat rigidly, her hands intertwined so tightly that her knuckles whitened. Her eyes alternated between Ethan, who couldn't stop looking at Steph Curry, and Marcus Johnson, the executive director of Curry's Foundation. Thank you for agreeing to talk to us, said Marcus gently. Sarah struggled against the embarrassment burning her face. What right did she have to be there, exposing her failure? I never expected you to see the message, she said, her voice faltering. It wasn't my intention. Mommy didn't know. I wrote at the end of her message, interrupted Ethan. I asked Mr. Curry to come see my shot because I'm practicing a lot. Want to see? Steph smiled genuinely. I'd love to see your shot someday, but today I came because I wanted to meet you and your mom in person. While Ethan chatted animatedly about statistics and plays, Sarah watched in amazement as her shy son opened up completely. Even more surprising was how Steph listened with genuine interest, treating Ethan's observations seriously. Where do you watch the games? Steph innocently asked. Ethan looked at his mother before answering with childlike honesty. Sometimes on store TVs. Sometimes a nice guy at the park lets us watch on his phone. And at McDonald's, Ms. Gloria lets us use the TV in the employee room. The silence that followed was heavy. We're in a temporary situation, Sarah quickly said. I'm working. I have plans. I just need a few weeks to... Sarah, Steph gently interrupted. We're not here to judge. We're here to listen." It was something in the way he said it, without pity, without condescension, that broke the barrier. Sarah told everything. The lost job, the medical debts, the judicial system that failed to make her ex-husband pay child support, the impossible Bay Area housing market, the endless waiting lists for subsidized housing. "The hardest part is trying to maintain some normalcy for Ethan," she confessed. "He's missed 2 months of school. His clothes are always wrinkled because we wash everything in gas station bathrooms." "Mr. Curry?" Ethan's voice cut through the emotional moment. "Do you know anyone who could give my mom a job? She's the smartest person I know, and she works harder than everyone." The boy didn't ask for money or autographs. His first concern was his mother. Steph seemed genuinely touched. "Actually, Ethan, I think I might know some people," he responded. "And I have some ideas to share, if you're willing to listen." Steph explained about the Foundation's transitional apartments for families in temporary housing insecurity. Marcus mentioned educational programs and tutoring for Ethan. And for Sarah, not charity, but opportunity. An interview for a coordinator position with teaching experience at the Foundation. "Why?" asked Sarah. "Why would you do all this for us?" "People talk about how I changed the game of basketball with my shots," Steph replied. "But what really matters, what I want to be my legacy, is how we use our platforms to change real lives. It's not charity, Sarah. It's responsibility." When they left the library, Steph insisted on accompanying them to the car. Seeing the Toyota with the back seats transformed into an improvised bed, stacked books, and a nearly empty cereal box on the console, clearly being rationed as a main meal, no comment was made. Just a silent understanding that transcended social status or celebrity. 8 months later, the clock marked 5:47 in the morning when Sarah woke, up in the small apartment in the East Bay housing complex. For a moment, like every morning, she experienced that disorientation, the shock of waking up in a real bed, under a safe roof. The path to get there hadn't been easy or instantaneous. The first weeks after meeting Steph were an emotional roller coaster, accompanied by guilt. What had she done to deserve help when so many others remained on the streets? "It's what we call survivor's guilt," explained Dr. Martinez, a therapist made available by the Foundation. Motivated by this awareness, Sarah began as a volunteer at the Foundation while preparing for the permanent position of Educational Programs Coordinator. Ethan faced his own challenges. The educational assessment revealed significant gaps, and he struggled with social anxiety, fearing to approach other children, avoiding talking about the homeless period. A turning point occurred when, during an informal game in the after-school program, an older boy accused Ethan of lying about knowing Steph Curry. When Steph himself appeared in the gym, he didn't directly mention the incident. Instead, he spent an hour with all the children, treating Ethan like any boy who loved basketball. "When I was your age," Steph told Ethan, "nobody believed I would have a future in basketball. Too short, they said. But my father taught me, it doesn't matter what people think you can do. What matters is what you know you can do." That night, as Sarah watched Ethan carefully prepare, his uniform for the first game in the new Community Youth League established by the Foundation, she reflected on how a single genuine human connection had transformed their lives. "Mom?" Ethan called before sleeping. "I was thinking, when I grow up, I want to help kids like Steph helped us." "That would be wonderful," Sarah replied, emotional. "Not just in basketball," he continued thoughtfully, "but helping kids who don't have homes, food, or people who care for them." "Why?" she asked. Ethan looked at the framed card on the wall, now accompanied by a photo of them with Steph and a handwritten note. To Ethan and Sarah, true MVPs are those who never give up, even when the game seems impossible. You are the real champions of Oakland. Because now I know what it's like when someone believes in you when you have nothing left, he replied simply. And I think everyone should feel that at least once. Later, after Ethan fell asleep, Sarah contemplated the lights of Oakland from the small balcony. The city that had almost destroyed them was now giving them a second chance. It wasn't a fairy tale. There were still daily struggles, worries, scars that would take years to heal. But there was also something that had been almost extinct during those nights in the car: the ability to imagine a future. Sarah thought about how Steph had demonstrated that true compassion doesn't come from top to bottom, but from equal to equal, eyes to eyes, soul to soul. How he refused publicity about the families he helped, saying that turning stories of struggle into propaganda would take away people's dignity. True impact happens in silence, not in the spotlight. A shooting star cut across the Oakland sky. Sarah smiled, remembering Ethan's wish so long ago. Some people would call what happened luck or coincidence. Sarah preferred to call it what it really was: the transformative power of human compassion, not as an abstract concept, but as concrete action. Living proof that, even in the darkest moments, when one hand extends and another grasps it, the entire world can change. Not by magic, not by miracle, but by the deepest and most radical of all gestures, one person truly seeing another and deciding not to look away.